The diplomatic station floated in the darkness between two very different worlds. Harmony Point was built for moments like this. Neutral ground where species could meet without the weight of territory or tradition pressing down on them. Today, it would host its most important meeting yet. Ambassador Lisa Grant stood in front of the large viewing window and watched the ship approach. It moved like a predator even in space, all sharp angles and dark metal. She had studied everything humanity knew about which was not much. They were warriors, hunters, a species that had clawed their way to the top of their world and never looked back. "They will try to intimidate us," said Captain Jack. He stood beside her, his hand resting near his weapon out of habit. "It is what they do. They measure everyone by how much fear they can create." Lisa nodded. She understood. They came from a harsh planet where only the strong survived. They spoke in growls and displays of dominance. Every interaction was a test of will. To them, the universe was divided into predators and prey, and they had no doubt which category they belonged to. "We need this trade agreement," Lisa said quietly. "The resources in their system could fuel human expansion for decades, but we cannot appear weak." "Then we have a problem," Jack replied. "Because by their standards, we are weak. We do not have their claws or their teeth. We do not use fear as our first language." Lisa smiled slightly. "No, we use something else. Let us hope it is enough." The ship docked with a heavy thud that echoed through the station. Lisa took a deep breath and walked toward the meeting room. Jack followed, along with a small security team. They were trained to stay calm, to show no fear, to meet aggression with steady resolve. The doors opened, and they entered. They were impressive, nearly 7 feet tall, covered in sleek scales that shifted from deep purple to black. Feathered crests rose from their heads and necks, each feather capable of standing on end to make them appear even larger. Their eyes glowed faintly with bioluminescence, an adaptation from hunting in the twilight forests of there. When they moved, it was with the fluid grace of natural hunters. Matriarch led them. She was older, her scales marked with the scars of 100 battles. Her crest was fuller than the others, streaked with silver. She looked at Lisa with eyes that seemed to measure and weigh everything in an instant. "Ambassador Grant," said. Her voice was deep, with a growling undertone that made the translator work hard to smooth it into human speech. "You are the one who claims to speak for humanity." "I am," Lisa said. She kept her voice steady and her posture relaxed but upright. "Welcome to Harmony Point, Matriarch. We are honored to meet you." Crest feathers shifted slightly. Among this was a sign of curiosity mixed with uncertainty. "Honored, an interesting word from a species we know nothing about." "Then this meeting will help us both learn," Lisa said. They moved to the conference table. They sat on one side, humans on the other. Jack noted how they positioned themselves, always keeping exits in view, always maintaining space to move if needed. Everything about them spoke of controlled violence held in check by will alone. Behind the adult, 3 smaller figures peered out with bright, curious eyes. The cubs. Lisa had been surprised when they insisted on bringing them, but had been firm. Young must witness how their elders conduct clan business. They must learn to read other species, to understand threats and opportunities. It is part of their training. The 3 cubs ranged in age from what would be 6 to 9 in human years. Was the oldest, his scales already darkening toward adult coloration. Was in the middle, her crest feathers showing hints of the iridescent blue that marked females. Senna was the youngest, still small enough that her intimidation displays would make most species smile rather than flee. They watched the humans with the intense focus of young predators learning to hunt. "We should begin," said. "My clan has traveled far. We do not waste time on empty words." The negotiations started cautiously. They wanted access to human agricultural technology. Their world was rich in rare minerals but poor in arable land. Humans wanted mining rights in the asteroid belt surrounding the system. It should have been a simple trade. But nothing with them was simple. Every statement was a test. Every question probed for weakness. When Lisa made a proposal, would lean forward slightly, her crest rising, her eyes glowing brighter. It was subtle, but the message was clear. Submit or be dominated. Jack watched the exchange with growing tension. He understood what was happening. They did not know how to negotiate without also establishing dominance. For them, an equal partnership was a foreign concept. There was only the strong and the weak. 2 hours into the meeting called for a recess. "We must consider your proposals, and my young ones need to move." They were not built to sit still for long periods. Lisa agreed. She was grateful for the break. The constant low-level intimidation was exhausting, even though she understood it was simply how they communicated. As the groups separated, heading to different rest areas, Lisa thought about her daughter. Emma was somewhere on the station, probably exploring with the curiosity that 8-year-old humans seemed to have in endless supply. Bringing her had been a risk, but Lisa's husband was deployed with the fleet, and there was no one else to care for their daughter. Besides, Harmony Point was safe, neutral, protected. What could possibly go wrong? In a training room 3 corridors away, Emma had discovered something fascinating. The door had been open, and her curiosity had pulled her inside. The room was empty except for practice equipment and 3 young creatures she had never seen before. They looked like dragons from her storybooks, scaled and feathered with glowing eyes and proud postures. Emma thought they were beautiful. The cubs had been practicing, was teaching his younger siblings the proper form of the predator stare. It was an essential skill, drilled into every from the moment they could focus their eyes. The stare combined body language, bioluminescence, and low-frequency vocalizations to trigger fear responses in prey species. Then saw the small human standing in the doorway. A human cub, alone, unguarded. Perfect! He gestured to his siblings. They understood immediately. This was an opportunity to practice on a real target, not just training dummies or each other. The 3 cubs spread out in a semicircle, moving with the silent coordination of pack hunters. Their eyes began to glow brighter. Their crest feathers rose. Low growls built in their throats, sounds pitched to resonate with the fear centers of mammalian brains. Emma watched them with wide eyes and a growing smile. "Oh," she said softly, "are you playing?" The cubs intensified their display. This prey was not running. Clearly, their technique needed more power. They moved closer, their scales rippling, their feathers fully extended now. They looked twice their normal size, fierce and terrible. Emma clapped her hands together in delight. The security monitors lit up with warning signals. Jack was halfway to the conference room when his communicator buzzed urgently. He stopped and checked the display. Aggressive posturing detected in Training Room 7, the automated system reported. Multiple biosignatures showing threat displays. Recommend immediate response. Jack's blood went cold. Training Room 7 was near the rest area. He changed direction and started running, his security team close behind. In the training room, the 3 cubs stared at Emma with growing confusion. Their predator stare was perfect. They had practiced it countless times. Every element was correct. The eye glow, the crest display, the threatening posture, the low-frequency growls that should make prey freeze in terror. But this small human just stood there smiling at them. Was the most confused of all. He was the oldest. His stare had already made adult merchants back down in fear. Yet this tiny, soft-skinned creature showed no fear at all. Instead, she seemed happy to see them. "I like your feathers," Emma said, stepping closer. "They are so pretty when they stick up like that." Took a step back. This was wrong. Prey did not approach. Prey ran or submitted. Those were the only 2 correct responses. What was this human doing? Emma tilted her head and looked at each of them carefully. "Are you trying to be scary, like for practice?" Senna, the youngest, let out a confused chirp that broke the growl she had been maintaining. This human was treating their sacred intimidation ritual like a game. Tried again. He drew himself up to his full height, which brought him almost level with Emma's shoulders. His eyes blazed brighter. His crest feathers extended until they formed a crown of threatening spikes. He opened his mouth slightly to show his developing teeth and let out the deepest, most threatening growl he could manage. Emma giggled. The sound shattered what little confidence the cubs had left. Cubs did not learn what giggling meant. They learned growls and hisses and roars. They learned the sounds of fear and submission. But this light, musical sound meant nothing to their instincts. "You sound like you are gargling water," Emma said cheerfully. "My dad does that in the morning, and it sounds funny, too." The door burst open. Jack entered with his weapon raised, followed by 3 human security officers. Their eyes scanned the room for threats. What they saw made them pause. 3 small were clustered in the middle of the room, their aggressive postures falling apart. And standing in front of them, completely unconcerned, was an 8-year-old human girl. "Emma," Jack lowered his weapon but did not holster it. "Are you all right?" "Hi, Captain Jack," Emma waved at him. I made new friends. They were showing me how they can look all big and scary. It is really cool. From another door, guards poured in, led by Matriarch herself. She took in the scene with sharp eyes that missed nothing. Her cubs attempting a predator stare. A human child, completely unafraid. And now armed adults from both species facing each other with tension crackling in the air. "Lower your weapons," commanded her guards. Then she looked at Jack. "Captain, there has been no attack. My young ones were simply practicing." Jack slowly holstered his weapon, practicing on my ambassador's daughter. "We did not know a human cub would wander into our training area," said. Her voice was carefully neutral, but her crest feathers were beginning to rise. "Perhaps you should teach your young to avoid strange places." "Perhaps your young should not practice threat displays on children," Jack replied. Emma looked between the adults with a worried expression. She had seen grown-ups argue before, and it never ended well. "Please do not be mad," she said. "They did not hurt me. They were just playing." Attention snapped to Emma. "Playing? Child, do you understand what you interrupted? The predator stare is not a game. It is survival training. My cubs must learn to establish dominance, or they will not live long in this universe." Emma thought about this seriously. "But I am not trying to be the boss of them. I just wanted to see what they were doing." "You should have been frightened," said. "You should have run or submitted. Those are the correct responses." "Why?" Emma asked. "They are just kids like me. Kids are not scary." Made a small sound of protest. Not scary. His pride was wounded. Ambassador Lisa Grant arrived, slightly out of breath from running. She saw her daughter standing calmly among cubs and armed guards and felt her heart rate spike. "Emma, come here right now." Emma walked to her mother obediently. Lisa knelt down and checked her over quickly, looking for any sign of harm. "Are you hurt? Did they threaten you?" "No, Mom, they were practicing being fierce, like when I practice my dance recital. They are really good at it, too." Lisa looked at her daughter's honest, open face and felt the diplomatic situation sliding out of her control. This could destroy the negotiations. They might see it as humans dismissing their culture, or worse, as humans showing dangerous fearlessness that needed to be crushed. But when she looked at Matriarch, she saw something unexpected. The leader was not angry. She was thoughtful. Her crest feathers had lowered and her eyes had dimmed to their normal glow. "Your child shows no fear," said slowly. "Why is this?" Lisa chose her words carefully. "Human children are taught to be cautious, but not to live in fear. We teach them to approach new things with curiosity rather than terror. Even when faced with obvious threats." "Emma did not see a threat," Lisa said. "She saw 3 young ones practicing skills much like she practices her own lessons." Looked at her cubs. They had abandoned their predator stares completely now. They stood in a loose group, watching Emma with expressions that had never seen on young faces before. It looked almost like curiosity mixed with uncertainty. Said sharply, "Did you execute the predator stare correctly?" "Yes, Matriarch," said, snapping to attention. "All elements were present and properly formed." And yet the human child did not respond with fear. Looked down at his feet, his crest drooping. "No, Matriarch," she laughed. Was silent for a long moment. The adults in the room waited, unsure what would happen next. Interspecies incidents had started wars over less than this. Finally spoke, "Perhaps we should discuss this further, not as a conflict but as a learning opportunity. Captain, Ambassador Grant, would you join me in reviewing what occurred here?" It was as close to a request as the proud matriarch could manage. Jack and Lisa exchanged glances. This could still go badly, but refusing would definitely make it worse. "Of course," Lisa said. "Though I think we need our children present for this discussion. They are the ones who experienced it." His crest feathers rose slightly in surprise. "You wish to include the young in diplomatic talks." "They are the reason we are talking," Lisa pointed out. Emma raised her hand like she was in school. "Can I ask them questions? I want to know more about their feathers and their glowy eyes." Senna perked up at this. She had been quiet until now, but the human's interest in their features was unexpected and strangely pleasant. Studied Emma for a long moment, then she gestured to her cubs. "You may speak with the human child, but maintain proper dignity." The 3 cubs approached Emma cautiously. This was unprecedented. They were supposed to maintain dominance in all interactions, yet their failed predator stare had left them unsure of how to proceed. Emma, unburdened by such concerns, smiled brightly at them. "Hi, I am Emma. What are your names?" The cubs looked at their matriarch for permission, gave a small nod. "I am," the oldest said. His voice still carried the growling undertone of his species, but it was softer now. Said the middle cub. "Senna," whispered the youngest. "Those are pretty names," Emma said. "Do you want to see pictures of my cat? He is named Mr. Whiskers, and he does this thing where he puffs up just like you did." Despite everything they had been taught, despite all their training, the three cubs found themselves the diplomatic meeting resumed, but the atmosphere had changed completely. Instead of sitting across from each other like opposing forces, they had arranged the chairs in a looser circle. Emma sat with the three cubs nearby, showing them images on her while the adults talked. Matriarch watched the children with an expression that her own guards found difficult to read. Her crest feathers were at half-mast, a position that indicated deep thought rather than aggression or calm. "Let me understand this clearly," said to Ambassador Grant. "When your children encounter something that appears threatening, you teach them to respond with friendliness." Lisa considered how to explain this without making it sound like humans were foolish or suicidal. "We teach them to assess situations carefully. Emma has grown up in a safe environment. She has never had a reason to fear other species. When she saw your cubs, she did not see predators. She saw other children." "That is a dangerous way to view the universe," said. "There are many who would take advantage of such trust." "Perhaps," Lisa agreed, "but there are also many opportunities that fear would cause us to miss. Emma did not fear your cubs, so she approached them with openness. And now look." They all looked. Emma was explaining something about her cat with animated hand gestures. The three cubs were listening with complete attention. Senna had moved close enough that her shoulder almost touched Emma's. When Emma noticed, she did something that made eyes widen. She reached up and gently touched Senna's crest feathers. "Your feathers are so soft," Emma said. "I thought they would be stiff like bird feathers, but they are more like hair." Senna froze. Being touched on the crest was intimate among. It was something only family or very close companions were allowed to do. She should pull away. She should hiss in warning. Instead, she leaned slightly into the touch and stared at their sister in shock. What was she doing? "Can I touch yours too?" Emma asked. Looked at Matriarch desperately. What was the protocol for this? There was none. No had ever written rules about how to respond when a human child wanted to pet your crest feathers. Gave a very slight nod. If this was going to continue, she needed to understand it. Lowered her head nervously. Emma reached up with both hands and gently stroked the feathers. "Oh, yours are even softer, and they have this pretty blue color in the light." Made a sound that was not quite a purr, but close to it. The sensation was pleasant in a way she had never experienced. Among, crest touching was always either aggressive grooming to establish dominance or the careful, formal touching of clan bonding rituals. This was different, gentle, affectionate, unconditional. Emma looked at, "Can I touch yours too? I do not want you to feel left out." Was the oldest. He had his pride to consider. He had been studying the ways of warriors. Allowing a prey species to touch his crest would be shameful. But Emma's eyes were so hopeful, and his siblings looked so content under her attention. And some part of him that had nothing to do with warrior training wanted to know what that gentle touch felt like. He lowered his head. Emma stroked his crest feathers carefully, working around the small spikes that would grow larger as he aged. "You are going to have the biggest, most impressive crest when you grow up," she said. "You will look so handsome." His eyes half closed. No one had ever called him handsome before. Fearsome, yes. Promising warrior, yes. But handsome. The word made him feel strange in a way that was not unpleasant. Jack leaned toward Lisa and whispered, "Is this really happening? Is your daughter grooming alien warriors?" "Apparently," Lisa whispered back. She had no idea how this would affect the negotiations, but she could not bring herself to stop it. Emma was building a bridge between species that diplomacy had not managed to create. Stood abruptly, everyone tensed, but she did not look angry. Instead, she looked deeply unsettled. "Ambassador Grant, I must speak with you privately." They moved to a corner of the room while Jack kept watch over the children. Spoke in a low voice, her words carefully chosen. "What you showed me today challenges everything I know about the universe," she said. "Among my people, all interactions are about dominance or submission. We establish hierarchy through displays of strength. The weak fall and the strong rise. This is natural law. Not for humans, Lisa said. We have hierarchies, but we also have cooperation without dominance. We have friendships between equals. We have love that asks for nothing in return. Love repeated the word as if testing its weight. Your child loves my cubs. They only just met. Emma has the capacity to love easily, Lisa said. Most human children do. We call it innocence. They have not yet learned to divide the world into threats and allies. They simply see other beings and want to connect with them. Was quiet for a long moment. On my world, such a child would not survive. They would be taken by predators in days. But we are not on your world, Lisa said gently. We are on Harmony Point, neutral ground, a place where different ways of being can meet and learn from each other. What you call innocence, we would call vulnerability, a fatal weakness. Is it though? Lisa gestured toward the children. Your cubs performed their most effective intimidation technique. Emma neutralized it completely without even trying. She did not need weapons or displays of strength. She simply refused to accept that they were enemies. And now your warriors in training are letting a human child touch their crest feathers, something I understand is quite significant in your culture. Could not argue with this. The evidence was right in front of her. Her cubs, who had been raised to be fierce and proud, were clustered around a human child like she was the center of their pack. This troubles me greatly, admitted. If my warriors can be disarmed by simple affection, how can they defend our people? Perhaps the question is not how they can defend, Lisa said, but whether they need to defend against everyone they meet. Your cubs saw Emma as a target for practice. She saw them as potential friends, which approach led to a better outcome. Before could answer, Emma's voice rose excitedly. Mom, can they come visit Earth someday? I want to show them our park and the lake where the ducks live. Said they have never seen ducks and I really want them to meet ducks. Lisa looked at her daughter's bright, hopeful face and felt something shift in her understanding of diplomacy. Maybe trade agreements and territorial negotiations were not the most important thing. Maybe what really mattered was whether children from different worlds could imagine a future where they played together in parks and met each other's ducks. That depends on their matriarch, Lisa said. Would you allow your cubs to visit Earth as part of a cultural exchange? Looked at her three young ones. They were watching her with an expression she had seen before, but never directed at anything beyond their own clan. Hope. They wanted this. They wanted to see this strange world with its ducks and parks and gentle humans who touched crest feathers like it was the most natural thing in the universe. I will consider it, said carefully. But first I must understand something. Emma, come here, please. Emma left the cubs and walked over to the matriarch without hesitation. She tilted her head back to look up at the tall leader. Yes, matriarch. You showed no fear of my cubs. Why? Emma thought about this seriously. Well, they are kids. Kids are not mean unless they are hurt or scared. They were not hurt, and I did not think they were really scared. They were just doing a practice thing, like how I practice my piano even though I do not always want to. And if they had been adults, trained warriors? Emma shrugged. I would probably still say hello. My mom says most people are nice if you give them a chance to be nice. Looked at Lisa. You taught her this. We teach all our children this, Lisa said. Trust first, caution when necessary. It does not always work, but it works more often than the alternative. The alternative being fear and suspicion, said. Yes. Knelt down so she was at eye level with Emma. This was not a posture of submission, but it was also not one of dominance. It was something new to her, a posture of equal consideration. Emma, daughter of Lisa Grant, said formally. You have done something today that no being in the galaxy has done before. You shattered my cub's predator stare with kindness. You touched their crests with affection. You offered friendship without asking what you would gain from it. This is not how the universe works in understanding, but perhaps our understanding is incomplete. Emma did not fully grasp the significance of what the matriarch was saying, but she understood the tone was important. I just wanted to be friends, she said simply. Friends, repeated. She stood and looked at Ambassador Grant. Perhaps that is what we should discuss, not just trade agreements, not just territorial boundaries, but whether two species as different as ours can truly be friends. Lisa felt hope bloom in her chest. I would very much like to discuss that. The next 3 hours changed everything. Both sides thought they knew about diplomatic negotiations. Ambassador Grant and Matriarch talked, but not in the careful, guarded way they had before. The presence of the children had altered the atmosphere. It was difficult to maintain aggressive posturing when your cubs were playing a hand-clapping game with the other side's child. Emma had taught and sent her a simple pattern game that human children played. Their clawed hands made it awkward, but they persisted with surprising determination. Every time they succeeded in completing the pattern, Emma would cheer, and they would make pleased chirping sounds that had not heard from them since they were very young. "Your trade proposal is acceptable," said, watching her cubs from the corner of her eye. "We will grant mining rights to the asteroid belt in exchange for agricultural technology and training, but I wish to add additional terms." Lisa pulled up her data tablet, ready to record whatever demands the leader would make. This was the moment where negotiations often fell apart. The hidden requirements, the last-minute changes. "I propose a cultural exchange program," said. "Not just documents and videos, real exchange. Human families hosted on worlds, families hosted on human worlds, children learning together." Lisa looked up sharply. "That is a significant expansion of our initial proposal." "Yes," agreed. "But I have learned something today that troubles me deeply. My cubs are trained from birth to be strong, to dominate or be dominated. They know no other way. Yet in less than 3 hours, a human child has shown them a completely different path. I cannot ignore this." Captain Jack had been listening quietly, but now he spoke up. "With respect, matriarch cultural exchange programs take years to develop. There are safety concerns, compatibility issues, language barriers." "All true," said, "which is why we should begin immediately. The longer we wait, the more time we waste preparing for problems that may never occur, or worse, preparing for conflicts that could be prevented by simple understanding." Lisa thought about her daughter sitting on the floor with 3 alien cubs, teaching them a game that human children had played for generations. What was proposing was risky. It would require trust on both sides, resources, patience. But it was also exactly what humanity needed. Not just trade partners, but genuine allies. Friends, as Emma had put it. "I will need to discuss this with the Human Coalition," Lisa said, "but I am in favor of your proposal." "As am I," said, then she paused. "There is something else I must address, something that disturbs me about my own people." She stood and walked to where the children sat. They looked up at her, Emma with open curiosity, the cubs with respectful attention. Senna said, "Tell me honestly, when you performed the predator stare for Emma, what did you expect to happen?" Answered first, as befitted his role as eldest. "We expected her to flee or submit, matriarch. Those are the only responses we have been taught." "And when she did neither?" "We were confused," admitted. "Nothing in our training prepared us for affection as a response to threat display." Senna looked at her youngest. Senna spoke quietly. "I felt strange, matriarch. When the human did not fear us, I did not know if I was doing the stare wrong or if she was broken somehow. But then she touched my crest, and it felt nice, and I stopped caring about the stare being wrong." Nodded slowly. "You have all just learned a lesson that most never learn. Not all species respond to intimidation. Some species, like humans, have built their entire civilization on different principles. Cooperation, compassion, the belief that others can be trusted until they prove otherwise." "Is that not weakness?" asked. He was genuinely confused. "I thought so," said. "But look at what happened here. Emma neutralized your threat display completely. She did so without weapons, without counterintimidation, without any of the tools we would use. She simply refused to accept that you were her enemies. Tell me, do you wish to harm Emma now?" Looked horrified. "No, matriarch, she is. She is pleasant. She showed us pictures of her cat. She likes our feathers. She wants us to visit her world and see ducks." "Exactly," said. "She has turned potential enemies into friends in the span of hours. If that is weakness, then perhaps we need to reconsider what strength truly means." This was a radical statement coming from a matriarch. The gathered guards shifted uncomfortably. Their entire worldview was built on the strength of intimidation and the necessity of dominance. But they could not argue with the results they had witnessed. Lisa saw an opportunity and took it. "Matriarch, may I ask you something about child rearing?" "You may ask." "Your cubs are taught to dominate or be dominated. But who teaches them that being dominated is acceptable? If everyone is trying to dominate everyone else, how do you ever cooperate?" His crest feathers rose slightly. It was a good question, an uncomfortable question. We cooperate within our clans. Within clan structure, hierarchy is clear. The matriarch leads, the warriors protect. The young learn, we know our places. But outside the clan, there are only rivals or prey, said, then she paused. Or at least that is what we believed before today. Emma, who had been listening to the adult conversation with partial understanding, raised her hand. Matriarch, can I ask something? Yes, child. If everyone on your world is trying to be scary all the time, does anyone ever have fun? The question was so simple, so childishly direct, that it cut through centuries of cultural assumptions like a blade. Opened her mouth to answer, then closed it again. Fun did have fun. They had combat practice, they had hunting. They had the satisfaction of victory and the pride of dominance, but fun in the way Emma meant it, play without purpose beyond enjoyment, affection without strategic value. We have clan celebrations, said finally, after successful hunts or victories in combat. But do you play games? Do you tell jokes? Do you hug each other just because hugs are nice? The cubs looked at their matriarch with sudden, intense interest. They had never thought to question the way things were, but now this human child was asking questions that made them wonder. Felt the ground shifting beneath her certainty. No, she admitted, we do not do these things, they serve no survival purpose. But they serve a happiness purpose, Emma said, and being happy is important too, right, Mom? Lisa smiled at her daughter. Yes, sweetheart, being happy is very important. Then maybe cubs could learn to play games too, Emma said. And maybe sometimes they could stop practicing being scary and just practice being happy. Senna made a small sound of agreement, leaned toward Emma hopefully. Even, who was the most committed to the warrior path, looked intrigued. Felt something crack in her chest, a belief she had held all her life, passed down from generations of before her. The belief that strength came from fear and dominance, that showing softness was the path to destruction. But if that was true, why had Emma's softness defeated her cub's strength so completely? You have given me much to think about, Ambassador Grant said. And you as well, Emma. I believe this cultural exchange program is not just desirable, it is necessary. My people have become so focused on being feared that we have forgotten how to be anything else. Perhaps it is time we learned. Lisa stood and offered her hand. Then let us work together to make this happen. Looked at the offered hand. Among physical contact between non-clan members was either combat or mating behavior. There was no neutral touch, no friendly gesture. But Emma had touched her cubs' crests with affection, and they had not died. They had not lost honor. They had simply experienced something new. Reached out and clasped Lisa's hand. The human's grip was warm and firm, but not aggressive. It was a gesture that said they were equals working toward a common goal. It felt strange, but also right. There is one more thing, said as they released hands. Emma, would you be willing to visit my ship? I wish to show you something. Emma looked at her mother for permission. Lisa hesitated, but Jack gave a small nod. His security analysis said that if they wanted to harm them, they had already missed several opportunities. Okay, Emma said. Can and Senna come too? Of course, said. It concerns them as well. They made their way to the ship, a group that hours earlier would have been unthinkable. A human ambassador, her child, a human security captain, and the leader of a warrior species walking side by side like old colleagues. The ship was impressive inside, all dark metals and efficient design, but what led them to was unexpected. A nursery. It was stocked with training equipment, of course, but there were also soft sleeping nests, shelves with what looked like toys carved from crystal and stone, a viewing screen showing footage of landscapes. This is where my cubs sleep when we travel, explained. Look at their possessions. Everything is designed to make them stronger, better warriors, more effective predators. She picked up one of the crystal carvings. It was a perfect miniature of a warrior in combat stance. Where are the things that make them happy? Asked quietly. Where are the things that teach them joy? Emma looked around the room with sad eyes. They do not have any toys that are just for fun. No, said, because we believed fun was a waste of time, weakness. Emma walked to her backpack, which she had been carrying all day. She pulled out a small stuffed animal, a cat worn from years of hugging with one eye slightly loose. This is Mr. Patches, Emma said. He is my second favorite stuffed animal. My first favorite is Bunny Blue and she is at home. but I always bring Mr. Patches when I travel because he makes me feel safe and happy. The formal negotiations concluded 2 days later. What had started as a simple trade agreement had transformed into something far more significant. The human coalition and the clans signed a comprehensive partnership that included trade, cultural exchange, mutual defense agreements, and a joint educational program. But the real change happened in quieter moments. Had spent an hour with Captain Jack, learning about human security protocols. What he discovered surprised him. Humans did train for combat, but they spent equal time training in conflict resolution, de-escalation techniques, and crisis counseling. The idea that a warrior could also be a healer of emotional wounds was foreign to thinking. We believe that true strength is protecting people, not just defeating enemies, Jack explained. Sometimes the bravest thing a soldier can do is choose not to fight. Thought about this for a long time. He thought about how he had felt when Emma touched his crest feathers. He had been prepared to fight. Instead, he had received affection, and it had not made him weaker. It had made him feel valued in a way combat victory never had. Had discovered human music. Emma had shared her favorite songs, simple melodies with lyrics about friendship and adventure. Had sounds they made during hunts and battles, but they did not have music in the way humans did. Music that existed simply to create beauty and emotion. Found herself humming one of Emma's songs while she practiced her combat forms. The melody made the movements feel different, less aggressive, more like a dance. When Matriarch heard her humming, she did not scold her. Instead, she asked to hear the whole song. Senna had not let go of Mr. Patches since Emma gave him to her. She carried the stuffed cat everywhere, much to the confusion of the other. But when they saw how content it made her, how she slept more peacefully with it, they began to wonder if perhaps not everything needed to serve a tactical purpose. On the final day before the delegation would depart, Emma asked her mother if she could give the cubs a proper goodbye present. "What did you have in mind?" Lisa asked. "I want to teach them how to hug," Emma said seriously. "Real hugs, the kind that say you care about someone." Lisa smiled. "That is a lovely idea, but you should ask them first if they are comfortable with it. Physical contact is different in their culture." Emma found the 3 cubs in the observation deck, watching the stars. They had been unusually quiet all morning, and when Emma approached, she saw that Senna had been crying. Tears were different from human tears, more like a clear oil that left tracks on their scales, but the emotion was unmistakable. "What is wrong?" Emma asked, sitting down beside them. "We do not want to leave," Senna said quietly. "We have to go back to our world and you will stay here and we will never see you again." Emma's heart hurt. She had not thought about this part. In 2 days, these 3 had become her friends. Real friends. The kind who listened when she talked about her cat and who showed her their favorite star constellations and who made her laugh with their awkward attempts at human hand games. "Maybe we will see each other again," Emma said. "My mom and your matriarch are making plans for visits." "Plans take time," said. His voice was flat, trying to hide emotion in the way young warriors were taught. "It could be years." "Or never," added. Emma thought about this problem, then she remembered something her grandmother had taught her. "My grandma says that people you care about are never really gone. They live in here." She put her hand over her heart. "Even when they are far away, you can remember them and feel close to them." "That sounds like human thinking," said. But he did not say it dismissively. He said it with curiosity. "Maybe," Emma said, "but it helps. When my dad is away with his ship, I feel sad. But then I think about the time he taught me to fly a kite or when we went to the beach and I feel better. I can remember his hugs and almost feel them again." "Hugs," Senna repeated. She had heard this word before but did not fully understand it. "Yeah," Emma said. "They are a human thing. When we care about someone, we put our arms around them and hold them close. It is a way to say, 'You are important to me,' without words." The 3 cubs exchanged glances. They had seen humans do this, wrapping their arms around each other. It had seemed strange. Only made close physical contact during combat grappling or mating displays. "Can you show us?" asked quietly, "so we can remember it when we are apart?" Emma felt tears prick her eyes, but she smiled. "Yes, but I have to ask first because consent is important. Can I hug you?" Was quiet for a moment, then he nodded. "Yes." Emma stood and wrapped her small arms around the young shoulders. She pressed close and held tight for several seconds, then released him. stood very still, processing the sensation. It had been warm, comforting, nothing like combat, everything like safety. "That was strange," he said, "but good strange." Emma hugged next and then Senna. Each time she squeezed tight and held on like they were precious to her, because they were. When she stepped back, all three cubs looked different somehow. Less like warriors in training and more like children who had been reminded that they were allowed to feel things. "Will you remember us?" Senna asked, clutching Mr. Patches. "Every day," Emma promised. "Will you remember me?" "Every day," all three said together. Behind them, unnoticed, Matriarch and Ambassador Grant watched. They had come looking for the children and found this instead. A human child teaching cubs about affection, about grief, about holding connections across distance. "Your daughter is remarkable," said quietly. "She is just being herself," Lisa said. "But yes, she is remarkable, so are your cubs. They have adapted to completely new concepts in just days. That takes intelligence and emotional flexibility." "They were trained to be rigid," said, "to follow the old ways without question, but Emma has shown them there are other ways, better ways, perhaps." She paused, watching Senna clutch the stuffed cat while tears streamed down her face. "I must tell you something, Ambassador. When we arrived at this station, I believed humans were weak, soft, easy prey. I planned to establish dominance in our negotiations, to take more than we gave to ensure the came out ahead." Lisa turned to look at the matriarch. "And now?" "Now I understand that we were the weak ones," said. "We are so trapped in our fear and aggression that we cannot even imagine another way to exist. Your daughter has no such limitations. She looked at my cubs and saw potential friends, not threats, not rivals, just children like herself." "What will you tell your people when you return?" Lisa asked. "The truth," said, "that we encountered a species that defeated us without firing a shot, that a human child shattered our warriors' training with nothing but kindness, that we have much to learn from a species we almost dismissed as irrelevant." She turned to face Lisa directly. "And I will propose something that will shock my clan elders. I want to send Senna to Earth, to study at one of your schools, to learn how human children are raised, to bring that knowledge back to our world." Lisa's eyes widened. "That is an enormous gesture of trust." "Yes," agreed. "But Emma trusted my cubs not to hurt her, even when they were trying to intimidate her. How can I offer less trust in return?" They watched as Emma pulled out her and showed the cubs how to send messages across space. She was setting up a communication channel so they could talk even when they were on different worlds. "Okay, so you type your message here," Emma explained. "And then you press send and it will come to me even if I am on Earth, and I can send messages back. We can tell each other about our days and share pictures and everything." "We can talk every day?" Senna asked hopefully. "Every single day if you want," Emma said. Looked at the device with new understanding. Technology was not just for weapons and ships and tactical advantage. It could also be for maintaining connections, for keeping friends close even across the vastness of space. "I would like that," he said, "very much." 2 hours later, the ship prepared to depart. The formal goodbyes had been said. The documents had been signed. The diplomatic mission was officially complete. But at the airlock, there was one final moment. Emma stood facing the three cubs. She had cried earlier, but now she was trying to be brave. Stepped forward first. He knelt down so he was at her height. "Emma, daughter of Lisa Grant," he said formally, "you have taught me that strength can be gentle, that courage can be kind, that the fiercest warriors are not those who inspire fear, but those who inspire hope." He reached up and pulled a feather from his crest. It was one of his primary feathers, black with iridescent purple edges. Giving it was significant. Among crest feathers were only given to family. "I want you to have this," said, "so you remember that you are clan to me now, not by blood, but by choice." Emma took the feather carefully. It was beautiful and soft, and it meant more to her than any toy or treasure. Stepped forward next. She pulled one of her blue-tinted feathers and handed it to Emma. "You showed me that there is beauty in more than just victory. There is beauty in music and laughter and the way starlight looks on your hair. Thank you for teaching me to see it." Senna was crying again, but she still managed to pull one of her smaller, softer feathers. "You gave me Mr. Patches. You gave me my first toy that was just for happiness. I will keep him safe forever, and I will remember that being happy is just as important as being strong." Emma held all three feathers like they were made of glass. I will keep these forever too, she promised. And I will message you every day and tell you about Earth, and you can tell me about your world, and we will never really be apart. The cubs nodded, unable to speak anymore. Then Emma did something that would be recorded in both human and history databases as the moment that changed everything. She kissed each of their noses one more time. Not in fear, not in submission, not even in conscious strategy. Just in pure, uncomplicated affection. The kind that says, "You matter to me," in a language that transcends species and culture, and the vast empty spaces between stars. Matriarch watched her cubs board the ship, each one clutching the memory of that final gesture. They were different now, changed. They would never be the same warriors she had imagined they would become. They would be something better. 3 months later, Captain Jack filed his final report on the diplomatic mission. He included detailed notes on trade agreements and security protocols, but he ended with this. In my 20 years of military service, I have seen weapons that can destroy planets and shields that can withstand anything the universe throws at them. But I have never seen anything more powerful than an 8-year-old girl choosing kindness over fear. Emma shattered an entire species threat display with nothing but a smile and genuine affection. She has taught me that humanity's greatest strength is not our technology or our tactics. It is our stubborn, unreasonable, absolutely relentless belief that anyone, no matter how different or dangerous they seem, deserves a chance to be our friend. If we can remember that, we will not just survive in this galaxy, we will transform it. On Earth, Emma kept the 3 feathers in a special box beside her bed. Every night before sleep, she would send messages to and Senna. They would tell her about their training and their studies. She would tell them about school and her cat and the ducks at the park. And slowly, message by message, day by day, 2 species learned that the space between them was not empty at all. It was filled with the kind of connection that only children understand instinctively. The kind that sees past scales and skin, past claws and soft hands, past predator and prey. The kind that simply says, "You are my friend and that is all that matters." Years later, when the first joint human colony was established, it would be named Harmony Point, after the station where it all began. The symbol they chose for the colony was simple. 3 feathers crossed with a child's handprint. A reminder that the greatest threats can be shattered not by force, but by the fearless kindness of those who refuse to see enemies where there could be friends. And in classrooms across both species, young humans would learn about the day that Emma kissed 3 alien noses and changed the galaxy forever. Not through conquest or domination, but through the simple, revolutionary act of choosing love over fear. She held the toy out to Senna, the youngest cub. "You can have him if you want, so you have something that is just for being happy." Senna looked at Matriarch with pleading eyes, felt something break inside her completely. "Take it," she said quietly, "with gratitude." Senna took the stuffed cat carefully in her claws. She held it close to her chest and made a sound that was not a growl or a hiss or any warrior sound. It was a purr of pure contentment. And watching her youngest cub cuddle a human toy, understood that Emma had not just shattered her cub's predator stare. She had shattered every assumption they had ever made about what it meant to be strong. They returned to the conference table, but this time Emma sat with them, the 3 cubs flanking her like an honor guard that had forgotten it was supposed to be intimidating. And in that moment, the real negotiation began. Anning closer to see the holographic images Emma pulled up on her. And watching this, Matriarch began to understand that humans might be far more dangerous than she had ever imagined. Not because of their weapons or their technology, but because they could disarm her warriors with nothing more than a smile. "You look like my grumpy cat, Mr. Whiskers, when he sees the dog next door," she said, all puffy and growly. Deep in the station's security center, alarms began to sound.